Draft, the format Magic the Gathering sets are actually designed for. Or were, anyway. Commander does seem to be creeping in here more and more, but unlike constructed formats such as Standard, Modern, or Pioneer, Draft is played with cards fresh from the pack, and decks built on the fly. All you need are some booster packs and 7 or so friends. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, golly, that's a lot of people, and you're right, it is. It can be pretty tough to get that many people together for a draft. Well, what if I told you that there's a way to draft with only you and one other friend? Welcome to Winston Drafting. Winston Draft is a limited Magic the Gathering format that only requires 2 people in order to play. So, how exactly does Winston Draft work? The draft begins with each player opening 3 booster packs. Without looking at the cards they contain, those 6 boosters, 90 cards total, are shuffled together. The players then roll a die to see who gets to pick first. The winner of the die roll starts the draft, while the other player gets to choose who goes first when the game actually begins. The stack of 90 cards is placed in the center of a table. This is known as the main stack. 3 cards are taken off the top of the main stack and set face down in 1-card piles. These will be known as the first pile, second pile, and third pile. Player 1 takes a look at the first pile. If that player likes what is in the first pile, they may choose to take it. If they do, they take the top card off the main stack and set it face down as a replacement first pile. If player 1 doesn't like what they see in the first pile, they may move on to the second pile. Before doing so, they must take the top card of the main stack and place it face down in the first pile. If player 1 dislikes what is in the second pile, they may move on to the third pile, placing the top card of the main stack in the second pile. If player 1 dislikes what is in the third pile, they may put the top card from the main stack face down in the third pile, and then draw a card from the top of the main stack. It then becomes player 2's turn. This process repeats until all 90 cards have been drafted. Note that when a player drafts from one of the piles, they get all the cards in that pile. Sometimes it will make more sense to take a pile of 3 lower-powered cards, as opposed to betting on something more powerful coming up. And sometimes it'll be worth the gamble. Now, Winston Draft is not the only 2-player draft format in existence. Rochester Draft, for example, can be done with just 2 people. However, in Rochester Draft, all the cards in each booster pack are laid out face up. Because all the information is known, the draft becomes a lot less about building your deck and a lot more about ruining your opponent's deck. This is called hate drafting, and some players don't find it to be very much fun at all. Within both a regular or Winston Draft, a knowledge of the card pool and draft archetypes within the particular set you are playing with is always a good idea. This is a limited format after all, and like any limited format, there are certain strategies that are meant to be built around. Signpost uncommons that hint at what strategies are meant to be playable still exist here, and can be a definite boon for figuring out what you should be looking for. Also, just as you would in any regular draft, there are cards you should prioritize over others. Strong creatures that impact the board as well as attack are always strong choices. Creature removal, both targeted and board wipes, are also a good thing to prioritize. Being able to deal with your opponent's threats is just as important here as anywhere else. Creatures with keywords that make them difficult to block, such as flying and menace, are also quite good choices. Perhaps in limited formats more than anywhere else, card advantage is key. Making sure you have better access to your opponents is no joke. This can take the form of creatures that draw you cards, spells that create multiple tokens, or even cards that force an opponent to discard cards. For a deeper look into how drafting works in general, check out my video on the subject here. There are 2 major factors that set Winston Drafting apart from other drafting experiences. Unlike with other limited formats, when you choose to not pick a card, there is a penalty of sorts attached to it. Say you don't pick pile 1, and so you put a new card on top of it and move on. Now your opponent not only has access to 2 cards, where they only had 1, but they now have more information about what your intended strategy is. This adds an extra layer of complication to the decision-making process on each of your turns. The other big difference has to do with the total available information. In a Winston Draft, players operate under an increased level of secrecy. In most draft formats, there's a certain lack of information each player has about what their opponent is doing. And in Winston Draft, that increases dramatically. Roughly 23% of the entire card pool is kept hidden from you during a regular booster draft. But in Winston Draft, that number has the potential to increase to as much as 50%. Since cards aren't being passed around a table from player to player, with the majority of the cards in any given pack known to each player, there is a much larger chance for exciting, out-of-nowhere plays that no one will see coming. This can lead to some very fun and bombastic gameplay. Richard Garfield himself wanted to play a draft that had the right balance of luck and skill involved, and that's why he created the Winston Draft. That's right, Winston Draft was actually created and developed by Richard Garfield, creator of Magic the Gathering. Variability, penalties for being picky, and a whole lot of concealed information make for a fun, casual play experience, just as Richard Garfield intended. Just because it's casual doesn't mean Winston Draft hasn't seen some top-level play. At the 2007 Magic Invitational, a round of Winston Draft was played and won by Tiago Chan, who would go on to win the entire tournament. This victory led to him designing and becoming the face of Snapcaster Mage. For elderly Magic the Gathering players such as myself who remember the original Innistrad, this was a major event in the history of Magic the Gathering, and it solidly cements Winston Draft's place in the annals of that history. Once you have some experience in Winston Draft under your belt, you can begin to branch out from 6-packs from one set into more chaotic drafts with packs from multiple sets. This can lead to even more strange and exciting play. Winston drafting a cube is another very fun option. Some people have even built cubes specifically for Winston Draft, which can be done with as few as 90 cards. 90 card cubes designed just for 2 people to draft from? Sounds interesting. Mayhaps a video on that subject is needed, But in the meantime, there are plenty of ways to do this, so don't be afraid to experiment a little. Limited formats are the great levelers of Magic the Gathering, particularly Draft, with its emphasis on card choice rather than pure luck. Financial concerns, card accessibility, and shifting metagames are not factors one has to contend with in Draft. The only real drawback is that Draft tends to require a lot of players in order to work correctly, and that can be difficult to pull off, even when there isn't a pandemic going on. With Winston Draft, however, all you need are 2 people in order to have a good time playing Magic. So the next time you have a hankering for some limited play, but don't feel like signing up for a full night of Draft down at your local game store, find yourself a friend, grab some packs, and get ready to draft some Magic the Gathering the way Richard Garfield intended. And I hope very much this video has been of some help to you. Remember, if you'd like to see my guide to draft, you can check out that video here or linked in this video's description. What is your favorite way to play 1v1 Magic the Gathering, limited or constructed? Let me know in the comments below.